We are going to investigate image formation. And it's too bad we're doing this online because this is a really fun lab to do with actual candles and lenses and finding the images, but we're going to have to make do. So what you have here is a simulator that simulates, you can imagine this to be a candle, and it's sending out rays of light in all directions. We are focusing on 3 of the rays of light, which we call the principal rays. And there's a couple things you can adjust on here. So right here is the focal point of the lens, and you can move that to wherever you need to. You notice it changes the thickness of the lens, but if the parameter is supposed to be 4 centimeters, you can put it on 4, and you'll know you're correct because it actually up here it shows you what the focal length is. So I don't have it quite right. So there, now my focal length is 4. So when you look at the lab data sheet, you'll see that right here when you put in the month you were born, you will be given some parameters to use, and these are the ones you need to use. So in this case, if you were born in the 4th month, which is April, you are going to use a focal length of 3, and the height of your object is going to be 1. So the way you do that is you grab the focus and you move it to 3 and make sure it's right on 3. And then you're not going to change that actually for the whole lab. So just leave it on 3. And it's a little hard to get there exactly. So now it's on 3. And yours will be different, so pay attention to what parameters you're given. And then what you can do is you can move the object. So this thing right here represents the object, and you can move it anywhere you want, and the simulator shows where the rays of light go, how they're bent, and where the image forms. So for example, this lab, the height of the object is supposed to be 1 centimeters, and the distance to the object is supposed to be 12 centimeters, and you want to locate the distance to the image as well as the height of the image. Those are the things you are trying to find. So the way you do that is the focal length is 3, the height of the object is 1, and I want to make the distance to the object 12 centimeters. So the top of the arrow is what you can move to drag. So I've got to make the height of my object 1 centimeter, and it's got to be 12 centimeters from the lens. That's how we measure the distance to the object, how far it is from the lens. And you can check down here to see if you're right. So the distance to the object is now 12, and the height of the object is 1. And what we want to know is where is the image? And unfortunately, I can't hide this, so you can probably just cheat, or you can read it off the graph. But the image is at about 1, 2, 3, 4 centimeters. See that tiny little image there? That's where the rays of light reconverge, so that's where the image is. So I would, in my data table, write down the distance to the image is 4 centimeters, and the height of the image is negative 0.33. So that's the data you're going to collect. This was 4 centimeters, and this was negative 0.33 centimeters. And then you're going to move the object to 11 centimeters, and then 10, and then 9. So as you move this object to 11 and 10 and 9 and 8, you can see the image is moving too. And our goal is to gather information about the image and to see if we can find a mathematical way to express the relationship between the distance to the object, which is the distance from here to here, and the distance to the image, which is how far the image is from the lens. And then the thing to watch out for is make sure your height of your image is always the same. So if it's supposed to be 1, you got to make sure it's 1. So when you go from 12 to 11 to 10, just make sure you make the height, how tall it is, exactly 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever you're supposed to do. Once you finish collecting the data, please scroll down. There's a big instruction here to remind you. Step 2 asks you to plot a graph. DO is the distance to the object. DI is the distance to the image. You're going to plot that on a graph. You will not find a mathematical model from that graph because it's not a straight line. And then you'll keep scrolling down and it will tell you how to replot your data to find a straight line. And then lastly down here it's going to ask you about your slope and your intercept and your math model. Okay? So, and these 2 boxes here will turn green if you get the slope and the intercept right. So that's how you work through the lab. The link to the simulator is right here at the top of the lab, and it's also in the project description. And then when you're finished, you will do the usual, generate a link and share it with us so that we can grade your lab.